What's up guys, welcome back to another video from Crossworld TCG, and today we're going to be covering the top 32 breakdown from the ARG Philly, which happened over the last weekend. Now, to no one's surprise, SS3 managed to sweep the competition, taking 27 out of the 32 top slots, with a majority of SS3 builds focusing around the red-blue engine. A few other decks did manage to top, including a handful of Hirudegarn lists and 2 Trunks lists. Both first and second place ended up being SS3 red-blue lists, with our winner, Danny Hype, running a version of SS3 that was a little bit more on the defensive side, with a total of 8 negates and 4 Senzu Beans, with an interesting inclusion of 2 copies of Mafuba in the main deck. And for our second place, from Eric Hill, he ran a little bit more of a standard list with 2 Digging Deep Vegetas, but he also opted to include an interesting tech card for the format, which was Ghost Attack Sun Gotenks. He also opted to play a single copy of Lightning Fast Hit. Be interesting to see how many different games that he took with this card, just from the surprise factor of it. Moving on to other versions of SS3 that managed to make it into Top Cut, we have Brendan Ackerson's SS3 8 build that did very well. I personally thought that this deck would see a little bit more representation in this event because of Scrambling Assault Sun Goten coming out, especially because it's seen moderate amount of success in some of the ARGs over the past few weekends. But either way, congratulations on the finish. Also, I think a little bit unexpected to most people is that only one SS3 green-blue control actually made it into Top Cut. Piloted by Raymond Sierra, featuring the new blue Vegito, as well as Combo Killer Enilaza and Kami's Power Piccolo, this deck seemed like a serious contender for this event. However, it might have been snubbed out by a tech choice that a lot of players opted to go with for this event specifically, as well as the fact that most lists were maining Chain Attack Zeno combo. Moving on, we have a mono red version of SS3 piloted by Ryan Miller that made it into top 32, where he was playing a pure red deck, opting for 4 Digging Deep Vegetas, and where he was playing what it looks like a more mid-range heavy deck. He figured that games might go a little bit longer because of how the red-blue mirror match operates in terms of how it grinds for card advantage, and it's cool to see that a deck without Flute, without Bean, could do so well in this tournament. Moving on, there were 2 separate red-yellow decks that did very well in this tournament. The first that we see, piloted by Kareem Sabri, opted for a little bit heavier of a yellow package, including 2 Source of Power Son Goku to help awaken, and 4 Mecha Frieza the Returning Terror to wipe boards. So I imagine that this guy had no problem clearing established boards in the mirror matches, especially when Kefla is seeing so much play. And I feel that both of these contenders probably wanted the safety net of being able to play a card like Flying Nimbus, just in case they ran into the Storm matchups, so that they'd be able to shut off their opponent for the turn. Our next red-yellow list, piloted by Jordan Markle, was playing an insane amount of negates, a total of 14 negates. This guy just did not want any kind of attack going through. Moving on to our next SS3 list, we have a mono blue list that looks very similar to the one that won an ARG a few weeks back. However, with the inclusion of some of the new cards from the Ultimate Box. It looks like Dennis Gleason opted to cut some Tapions for the new Sidra card that came out, as well as fully swapping the Bergamos for Vegetos. I'm guessing he thought with the success that SS3 Mono Blue saw previously that more people would start main decking Dimensional Banisher Fu to be able to play around the Bergamo lock, and so he opted to play the Vegetos because it has Barrier instead. And finally, for the last SS3 variant that we're covering here today, we have a SS3 mono red deck focusing on Triple Flash SS4 Son Goku. I think it's very cool that this guy had as much success as he did in the day, combining a little bit more of the aspects of red-blue mid-range into a Triple Flash list, and it's cool to see that this card finally see competitive success in such a big event. Next, moving on from the non-SS3 lists, we have a few Hirudegarn lists. All 3 of them seemed like pretty standard red-blue aggro decks. Amir Coleman decided to include at all costs Vegeta into his deck, and it seems like his deck was focusing more on using Double Strike to finish games quickly with the aggro aspect of this deck. And the other one that we're featuring here today from Nick Brady included a little bit heavier of a Minosha engine to generate card advantage throughout the game, and opted to play Intensifying Power Trunks as well. Not too much to be said about these decks. Both of these decks are very solid and will probably see success from here on out. Moving on to our last couple list that we're featuring here today, we have a Trunks deck playing the red-blue engine. So this seems very similar to the Hirudegarn list, where it's just an aggro deck which is attempting to rush your opponent down as quickly as possible. With the amount of card advantage that Trunks generates throughout the game, it's easy to see why this deck did so well, but with the amount of defensive power that the SS3 lists were playing, I'm not surprised that not as many of the Hirudegarn or Trunks aggro lists were able to make it into Top Cut. However, what surprised me was the fact that only one blue-yellow Trunks deck, also known as Storm, was able to make it into the Top Cut. I think a lot of people were expecting this deck to show up in big forms. However, I'm a little bit surprised that not as many versions of this deck managed to make it into Top Cut with how much the deck has been hyped up over the last month or so. It might be that people were more used to playing SS3 red-blue, so they opted to play a more mid-range strategy that was a little bit more forgiving than this aggro style, but I have a feeling that we're going to see a little bit more from this deck in the future. And that's it for the decks that we're going to cover today. The last thing that I want to talk about is the very interesting tech option that a lot of players were playing this weekend, which is Terra Assault Frost. This card seems very interesting because it allows you to just kill big threats in the SS3 red-blue mirror match, as well as being able to just outright destroy that new Vegito card that came out with Barrier. And I'm assuming that most players were playing these cards to easily get around Keflas and that Vegito card. My final thoughts on this event is that we're going to see a lot more SS3 red-blue in the future, maybe some Trunks Storm. However, I think that red-blue will continue to be a dominant force as the format progresses. If Bandai decides to do something about that deck specifically, we might see some things shake up, but overall, right now, I think we're living in the era of red-blue. And this has been Logan from Crossworld TCG. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more tournament breakdowns with us here on the channel. Please comment down below and let us know what your thoughts are about this current meta, and if Bandai should actually do anything to curb these numbers, or if the format should just run its course. And I hope to see you guys next time here on Crossworld TCG.